Welcome everyone to World Series News. This is an update, an emotional update for all of us who are watching, waiting, and trying to work out the moves, the counter moves, and where we all end up. Do we survive out of this? Do we perish out of all of this? One thing's for sure, there is a war, and the war is against a certain group in our society, those that do not want to follow this mandatory, compulsory coercion that they are coming for us and our children, our livelihoods. Everything that we hold dear to us is being challenged and taken from us. And it seems that the general public eggs them on and cheers them on like we are the bad people because we are just saying, hold on a minute. We just want to see what this is all about. And we're not stupid. Most of us have been researching what's been going on for years. Absolutely years and years of research every day. Whilst those who are complaining that just get it over with, come on, you can go travel, you can go do this and you can go do that. Well, that's the point. While you were traveling to Bali and to Disneyland and to Europe and to Queensland and to the theme parks and all the rest of us, we're sitting and reading and researching and trying to work out what it was in our gut that was not right about what was going on. How could it possibly be that a President Trump, who gives up everything to become the president, his wealth, his freedom, his liberty, and his twilight years to serve the people, what could it possibly be that he's doing it for? And surely it's not just to enrich himself, because at 70 years of age, most people with $4 or $5 billion worth of wealth would retire and they would enjoy the fruits of their labor. They would spend their money and they would help out those that they loved and watch their children grow and their grandchildren. That's what most people who are billionaires do at 70. Instead, we found a person that decided to take on the system and be crucified in the press, be crucified by the public, and therefore it just stands to reason that when somebody's crucified, other people like some of us stand up and go, there's more to the story, and there was. So with the setting of a courtroom, it's apt that this update would include some very important updates for all of you at home who are just wondering what comes next. Well, let's have a quick look, shall we? Jury selection for the Ghislaine Maxwell trial commences Thursday in the United States, with the trial commencing November 29th. Promises to be the trial of the century, where Ghislaine Maxwell is facing criminal charges for the trafficking of young women. She, of course, was the right-hand woman of Jeffrey Epstein, the man who presumably took his own life with a sheet made of paper and hung himself in his cell with 24-hour surveillance that just so happened to go off, and the two people meant to watch him were paid off, we found out, with consumer goods to look the other way at exactly the right time, suggesting that maybe Epstein was gotten to or perhaps gotten out. Who knows? Don't know anything anymore, do we? But the other exciting news that promises from a courtroom is that John Durham, after many, many months of being in the wilderness, has presented further charges in the last week or so. Michael Sussman and Igor Danchenko, who turns out was the source for Christopher Steele's bungled and nonsense dossier used and relied upon to get the FISA court to grant a surveillance warrant on Carter Page, which ultimately led to spying on the Trump campaign. We've learned from many good journalists this week that in fact this goes all the way up to Hillary and Obama, just like I reported 4 years ago when it happened in real time. Not looking for any cred, just looking for some justice and for the people to realize who it is that's manipulating them into taking these vaccines as part of another agenda to enforce chemicals into our bodies with unknown consequence using brand new messenger RNA technology. Where to from here? It's an interesting, extraordinary time to be alive. And I'll tell you what, if you're one of the people that doesn't do what the government says, never in our history has any government gone as hard as the Australian government has on its people right now. Chopping and changing and following the rules of coercion to a T to force us into compliance by dangling a carrot just in front of our faces and then taking it away like Dominic Perrottet did in New South Wales last week by changing his goal from December 1, which was well over the 80% double vax jab as modelled by the Doherty Institute that Scott Morrison promised us, which at the time was way over world standard. Perrottet decided when he took over, he was going to set the date as December 1, regardless of if he got to 90% or not. And they're already at 90%, and we're still in early November. He decided to go to December 15 because he wants 95%. Yesterday on the ABC, they reported that 100% of people in the ACT have taken their first jab. They're even starting to report that perhaps that number might go over 100%, showing us that they just seem to make up numbers to suit themselves, don't they? So who knows what the real numbers are and why they're going so hard? What are they going to do when they get to 100%? Are they going to open the doors, or are they going to keep us inside a little bit longer? Is it torture that they like, or is it something else entirely? Who knows? But what we have to do is work out what's best for ourselves now. It appears that we may, in New South Wales, get a little bit of a Christmas in, although in Queensland, Premier Palaszczuk has instituted medical apartheid today by firstly announcing that mask mandates will disappear at 80% single jab in that state, who will certainly, at 79.9%, change that rule, because she's already determined that in Queensland, the unvaccinated aren't allowed to go anywhere from December the 17th, except to a wedding where the guest limit is unlimited if they're all vaccinated, but if there's one unvaccinated person there, suddenly it's 20. So in other words, on a couple's biggest day of their life, they will get to choose whether they bring in their friend or family member or just simply cut them out of their joyous day. It's extraordinary that you can preach and legislate hatred against your fellow man. Makes me wonder, makes me think about the time when Princess Diana was alive. And I haven't really thought about Diana, and I'm certainly not a monarchist or a royalist. Haven't thought about Diana apart from the fact of the powerful effect that she's had on people. After she died, it was a time to reflect upon it, but she just came into my thinking just yesterday. And I remembered how it was her that used to hug those with HIV and full-blown AIDS, and she just gave an outpouring of love. It's what made her the people's princess. And I wonder today if she was to resurrect and she would walk down the street, aged around about 60, and probably looking just as beautiful as she ever did, and she would look and she would hold the hands of the unvaccinated, and equally she'd visit the victims of vaccine injury in hospital suffering myocarditis and sit and hold hands and just give love. What an angel. It's the angels that seem to leave us too early and too often. And now we're seeing a rapture of death amongst athletes, professional sportsmen, hockey players, soccer players, cricket players, NFL, freedivers suffering myocarditis and death and other ailments as a result. And even the governor of California has vanished now for 11 days. 11 days. Amazing. He took the third, well, actually, he didn't take the third jab. He took the booster. Let me explain. Gavin Newsom took the Johnson & Johnson. It's a single shot vaccine, not a double. But then he went and had his booster shot, and he took a Moderna, according to reports. That means he's mixed vaccines, which in any other period in history, there would not be a single doctor on earth that would ever tell you to mix vaccines with different technologies or different recipes. But interestingly, in Australia, they're actually telling you to take the third jab Pfizer booster, even if you've had AstraZeneca, which is not even an mRNA vaccine. Somehow they've overlooked it. I ask the TGA and Kerry Chant and Greg Hunt, where's the data to prove the safety of mixing vaccines? There isn't any. There hasn't even been a study of any of these things. It's extraordinary what people will accept when authority just tells you to do it. But like any good business person who is presented with an offer or an opportunity, they immediately say, and part of the process is to allow them time to perform their due diligence. That's the process of doing their own independent research to determine whether or not that investment is right for them. So why wouldn't you, before you take a vaccine that is going to be in your body for the rest of your life, do your own due diligence outside of the realms of coercion, speed, compulsion, necessity, and just be able to take the time to do the necessary research that you need to do in order to make sure that that decision is right for you. When did we ever forget in Australia or around the world that medical ethics are formed on the basis that the only medicine you take is the one that is right for you, and you are the only person who can determine whether or not you take it? Anything else is a defilement of medical ethics. But somehow, when you define globalism, you are meant to believe that you put all other people ahead of yourselves. This makes no sense at all. And if it's globalism that they want, it's globalism that I will never accept. At that point, I will take my Gandhi moment and go on a hunger strike for the rest of my days. That is how I see it and where I stand. I don't think there's anything that they can do with me, whether they capture me, imprison me, or perhaps even want to make a fool of me or decapitate me in public. But should somebody ever think that they can put a needle in my neck or in my body to force me to do anything, that is the exact moment when I withdraw from society completely, for my free will has been taken and I no longer identify as a human being. That is my end. With that somber observation and thought process, I'll end this short update and just provide a little piece of information. I call this my emotional plea of sharing where I feel we are at the moment. But if the tides turn and those courtrooms fill up, there will be official news that changes the way that we see the world and those that rule upon us. The questions that we ask ourselves in the days leading up to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial are simple. Will Prince Andrew be mentioned in the court, and will he suffer embarrassment, and worse, will he be able to be dealt with? Will the Queen, his mother, continue? Or will her fitness and her health hold up? Equally, will the Clinton Foundation be exposed, and will Bill Clinton's health hold up? Should John Durham get to the bottom of the Russiagate investigation? Should Hillary and Obama both be exposed for their involvement? It all remains to be seen. So where there is life, there is hope. And where there is an election, there's always a chance that we can get rid of the government of the day and install the people into power and make sure that the people are represented and that segregation and division and hatred are removed once and for all from the Australian lexicon and legislation for the rest of all time. This shit has to stop, and stop very, very soon. The power is in the hands and the feet of the Australian people, and the hands and the feet and the hearts and the minds of all of the rest of the world. If you are watching this from outside Australia, we desperately would like your help and assistance to block and picket the consulates and embassies around the world. The Australian government has lost its mind. It is cruel beyond all belief. And Scott Morrison, when he tells us that he will not have we don't have mandatory vaccines in our country, and then will go about doing exactly the opposite to coerce us to the point of drowning and suffocating us, and still maintain that that man is a Christian, beggars belief. And I thank you for watching this World Series News update. Please help by sharing it far and wide. Australia and the rest of the world is changing. It's not changing for the better at all. It's yet another attack on our system, our moral fabric, our fiber, and yet again, these governments never seem to offer us anything but a solution to a problem that is still yet to be defined. And Anthony Fauci is being accused of lying to Congress and committing all sorts of horrendous crimes as we try and determine whether this virus actually started in the lab, which is looking more and more likely, and whether or not it was accidentally let out or on purpose. Because I'm pretty sure that there are protocols in laboratories when you're playing with dangerous viruses that they only get let out by accident if they're accidentally on purpose. Check out amillionmums.com for lots of support material for your children, for yourselves, for your jobs, for your homeschooling, and worldseriesnews.com.au, novaxid.com.au, where businesses who would like to support all Australians and not discriminate are welcome to list their businesses on that site free until January. Thank you. See you next time.